Hello and welcome to Lesson 8 of Software Design and Development, National 5 Computing Science. Today we're continuing with fixed loops, but today we're going to look at something slightly more useful than just printing a bunch of numbers. So let's create a new REPL in Python. Let's call it Fixed Loops 2. Now for this example, this program is going to ask the user how many items they are buying. Then ask for each item's price. Keep track of the total. Now this is breaching slightly into unknown territory here. We've got a running total within a loop, so we're going to kind of cover this as well, but we'll look at this in more detail again in the future. So let's just work our way through these instructions just the way that we planned it. So first off, ask the user how many items. So we create a variable called items. It's a whole number because you can't get half items, and we get the input from the user. Next up, we start a fixed loop for x in range for each item. So items. So for x in range, items. So this is, let's say we type in we have 3 items. This will be range 3, so we're going to loop 3 times. Now what we're doing is we're asking for each item's price. So we're going to say price equals, now a price can be a float, a decimal, enter the price. Now I'm going to show you a couple of things that will make this program look a bit better. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add this price to a total, but we don't have a total yet. If I were to say total equals price, that's just replacing the total with the price each time we work around. What we need to do is create the total first. Now before we get any items prices, what is the total? Well, it starts at 0. If you haven't yet picked up an item, the total is 0. So instead of total equals price, what we can say is total equals the old total plus the price. And then at the end we can say print the total is, and then add the string version of the total. Okay, let's run it and see how it looks. Enter the number of items, let's say we have 3. Enter the price, okay, 4.6. Enter the price. Oh, this is a terrible message. And enter the price. Okay, the total is 25. Looks pretty accurate, but I don't like these messages. Enter the price, enter the price, enter the price. It's not very intuitive. It doesn't tell me what item I'm entering the price for. So what we could do, remember in the last lesson, x was a variable. Now again, this variable could be anything. It could be loop. So for loop in range, I could do that, or I could call it I for iterator or index. I like to call it x just because it's a standard variable name in maths, so that's why I use it. So instead of enter the price, I'm going to say enter the price of item, and then I'm going to close the quote and concatenate x. So if we look at this, we've got a string at the start. We're concatenating the string version of x. Remember, x contains one of the numbers in this range. And then we concatenate another little string on the end, which is this colon. I might also, just looking at this, I might also add a pound sign to complete the look. So let's run this and see how it looks now. Enter the number of items, 3. Enter the price of item 0. So we're a bit better, and we've got a pound sign, £4.45, 47, whatever, 9.36, and then we've got 11.20. Okay. And then we've got a cool number here. Okay, this is something very unusual about programming languages and how computers store decimal numbers, how they store floating point numbers. Just ignore that. It should be 25.03. We don't really have the time to go into the details of why this happened, so just ignore it for now. But sometimes you will see these very strange floating point numbers. So what's the problem with this program now? Well, it's starting from 0. Well, as you know, we could fix this to start from 1 and end on items plus 1. This fixes it. This actually fixes it perfectly. Let's do that. 3 items, enter the price of item 1. There we go. There we are. Again, this message isn't quite right, so let's put a pound sign here. Beautiful. Now normally I don't like, this is just personal preference, and you'll find your own personal preference as well, you'll find your own style, but I don't like having multiple things inside a range. I think that's slightly more confusing. I'm going to keep that to items, but instead of enter the price of item X, I'm going to do X plus 1. I think this is easier to understand to my eye. If I were to take a quick look at the range, this makes more sense than what we had previously. but it does exactly the same thing, so it doesn't matter which way you do it, as long as you're happy. There we are. Looking good. So that's just a different example of how you would use a fixed loop, and we kind of touched on keeping track of a running total within a loop. Next lesson, we're going to look at while loops. These are known as conditional loops. I'll see you then.